Welcome to the Mischief Maker broadcast, where chaos, creativity, and common sense collide. Your host, Joel Freeman, was kicked out of high school in Alberta, Canada. He left home at 17 and hitchhiked around North America as a long-haired hippie and dope-smoking fool. He made a 180-degree change, becoming one of the first chaplains in the history of the NBA. As a professional speaker, Joel has traveled to well over 55 countries. His many books have been published in 28 foreign translations. Pieces from his Black History collection have been seen by millions at the United Nations and many other venues. And now, the Chief Mischief Maker himself, Dr. Joel A. Freeman.
Hi, Bigger Baby Joel here. My dad had the radio on this morning, and they said that the CEO of IKEA had just become the Prime Minister of Sweden. I hear that he's currently assembling his cabinet.
Well, he's currently assembling his cabinet. Thank you, Bigger Baby Joel. Well, tonight we have a great show for you. I have with me the Jack Johnson Legacy Belt here. If you want one of these belts, just go to the QR code up above and click on, I think, the second or third on the link tree. That'll show you how you can donate to our nonprofit foundation wherever you are in the world: Germany, France, Italy, India, Australia, Japan, Canada, US. We're only making 700 of these. And so you will want one of these. When you see it, it'll blow your mind. Tonight we have a very special guest, a very good friend of mine. His name is Steve Fitzhugh. He played for a while with the Denver Broncos in the NFL. And he has a rather eclectic career in so many different areas. But what I want to do tonight, before we introduce him officially and bring him on the show, I want to play something for you. It's called A Good Name, and this is something that Steve put together. And when the NFL, National Football League, saw it, they brought him on the rookie transition team, where he helps young players transition from everyday life, moving from high school to college and then the NFL, and how to live. As one coach said, you can live like a king for a few years, or you can live like a prince for the rest of your life, and helping them understand the ups and the downs and all arounds of being a professional athlete. And so now, without any further ado, we're going to play that piece. It's called A Good Name by Steve Fitzhugh.
Statistics tell us that 4 years from now, about 80% of you will be in a different profession. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to tell you all the ways you can make the most of this tremendous opportunity. When you walk through this door, you have no Super Bowl title, you have no Rookie of the Year status. Today, all you really are and all you really have is your name. And when your time in this league is done, whether 2 years, 10, or 20, it is how you have managed your name that will determine the quality of your life and the legacy that you leave. There are two things you can do with your name. Either you can destroy your name, or you can employ your name. Lack of sportsmanship, poor character, and compromised integrity will destroy your name. That's why we call the NFL a professional football league, because it is a profession done by professionals. And your invitation to participate in this privileged community does not necessarily prove that you belong here. Because professional means expert and qualified, specialized, proficient, skilled, trained, practiced, and certified. The opposite of professional is amateur. Amateur means unpaid and recreational. I mean, we've all seen the unpaid recreational sports, the fussing, the fighting, the arguments, the disrespect. Well, the NFL is a whole world apart. Your life from this day forward, be it public or private, will be scrutinized. And if in times of weakness your lack of personal discipline reveals itself, it will identify you not as the professional you aim to be, but sadly as the amateur you actually are. For poor choices, wherever you exhibit them, will always injure your name, and regardless of your potential, clearly categorize you of one who is simply in the wrong place, immature, premature, amateur. On the other hand, personal discipline and a commitment to strong principles will protect your name and help you prove to the team, the league, and all those around that you belong. For the name respected is better than great riches, but if by your neglect your name becomes ruined, then sadly, your riches will eventually die with it. A good name, however, will be your ally and help facilitate for you and your family wealth throughout your entire life, today and every day. Your greatest responsibility is going to be the way that you decide to manage your name. Every decision that you make, every action that you take, every word that you speak, every tweet that you tweet will bear the stamp of only your name. Your unmatched skill set, your unprecedented athleticism is no match for a bad name. A bad name will bring embarrassment to you, your family, your friends, and your coaches every time. So tell us, rookie, what you're going to do about your name. Or your name be the name associated with hard work and good character, integrity, honesty, humility, faithfulness, intelligence, sportsmanship. If these are the things we think of when we hear your name, then I guarantee 20 years from now when your career is over, all pro or not, you will still be signing autographs. Not for what you have done, but for who you have become. Your good name will still be working for you. Whatever you do, rookie, protect your name.
Wow. Steve Fitzhugh, that piece right there, I can only imagine the amount of thought that went into it, the experience. As some have said, that your talent can take you to high levels, but can your character keep you there? Steve Fitzhugh, welcome to the Mischief Maker Show. And we've been friends for a long time. I think it's probably into decades now. Welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure. It's my honor.
So you were in the NFL. You have a lot of experience that's behind the words that you said in that piece, the good name. And I'd like for this whole show for us to kind of weave the whole concept of a good name through every single aspect of our conversation and how it impacts people who are viewing live from different parts of the world. And so we got here already Lenny or Leroy, I can't see, King, a great concept, well articulated. High praise from this gentleman. Folks, if you when you put in your questions, if you could just say where you're from, so that we have a sense of what part of the world you're watching this from, and then that way we can, when Steve responds, he can respond in a very specific way to you and the country you represent. So let's put a pin in the whole idea of the NFL and step back to Akron, Ohio, where you came from, and you grew up. That's the LeBron James country. There's a lot of industry, so many different things. What aspects about your childhood, both the good, the bad, the good, the bad, and the ugly, contributed to this whole idea of having a good name in your family, your associates, your schooling, all the aspects that you dealt with in your early childhood?
So people often ask me about Akron, Ohio. Are you born in the same city as LeBron James? No, I was not. LeBron James was born in the same city I was born in.
I love it.
But no, growing up, I had a modest upbringing there in Akron, Ohio. I was the youngest of four. They called me the baby's baby because my father was the youngest of four. And, my life was such that my parents divorced when I was young, and my mom raised four on her own, and I didn't know I was poor until a kid told me in the fourth grade, "You must be poor." Because I said, "Why you say that?" He says, "My mom said those kids who have the little paper tickets for lunch, that they don't have enough money to buy a lunch." But my mom made my life such that, I didn't know I was poor. My mom made every day an adventure, and my life was an adventure. But it was also riddled by challenge and heartbreak. And as I often say, I didn't have to look beyond the front door of my home to see lives without purpose, lives um, without some of the guardrails that you really need, and some of the direction that you really need to make success out of life. So, I was excited to be a Fitzhugh because my brother was a big time football player, and I had to go to his games. Ray Fitzhugh, the ball carrier, that's my brother. He was one of the top running backs in the state of Ohio, and so the whole idea of you have to represent. I went out for football because my big brother played football. And the coach told me, Fitzhugh, when you go through that hole, I was all of 9 years old. When you go through that hole, you hit the linebacker. And I didn't know what a linebacker was, and I didn't know what the hole was. But the guy he was pointing at was my friend Bubba, and I didn't want to hit him because he never hit me. And I went through there again, and I didn't hit him. And the coach said, this time, if you don't hit him, he says he was going to do creative with his foot. And so I said, all right. So I went through the hole, did the same thing. I ran all the way to the baseball diamond. I thought I had to run. Came back, and the coach kicked me, and I quit football.
Wow.
And I said, if this is what football is about, it's not for me. And my brother said, man, you a Fitzhugh. And that meant something to me. And he said, you can't just quit, Stevie. You a Fitzhugh. I didn't go back that summer, but I went back the next year, and I played the rest of my life. Well, not the rest of my life, the rest of my life through my adulthood. So the whole idea that you represent something and that you have to take responsibility for it was important to me. But as I go back to the things I saw in my home, I saw dysfunction. And I jokingly say to folks, my family put the funk in dysfunction. And all families have problems, and the families that have tools to deal with those problems end up handling those problems. The families who do not have the tools to deal with that dysfunction, those problems become dysfunctional. And at 12 years old, I discovered that my life didn't have to be the way I saw in front of me. The brokenness, the broken marriage, the alcohol, the drug use, the marijuana use, the pain, the hurt, the heartache, that there was a way to do life. And when I found that out, as a result of my sister dating a guy who became a Christian and took her to church, and she became a believer, and he went off to study the ministry, and she didn't want to go to church by herself. And one day back in, she asked her 12-year-old brother back in 1975, Stevie, would you like to go to church with me? My first thought was, it's Easter already. I didn't know what a church looked like without Easter lilies. That was an Easter thing. But I found out there was a way to do life. And it flipped the script of my life. That was at 12 years old. At 11 years old, I was behind the garage with one of my brothers smoking weed. 11 years old, 5th grade. The year after that is when I found out there's a way to do life. And I had a name change. I wasn't just Steve Fitzhugh. I was Steve Fitzhugh, a believer. And so that set my life on a different course. And so when I look back over my shoulder, my mom, who died, 6 inoperable cancerous tumors on her brain, chronic smoker, chronic drinker. And I realized as an adult, she was drowning the pain of a broken marriage. I had that brother that I idolized, smoked so much crack cocaine, the base of his brain exploded. He died instantly at the age of 41. My other brother is still alive, but he's still struggling with cancer. I had a sister who died from complication of multiple sclerosis, which is complicated by some of her drug use. I had 5 uncles who all died from drugs, alcohol, smoking, drinking. 2 aunts died. My grandmother dipped snuff, chewed tobacco. The cancer ate through her face. And I remember coming up from college, changing her bandages. She died when I was in college. And my grandfather smoked a filterless Camel cigarettes. I was born in January. He died in October of that year. So all of that as a fifth grader, 11 years old, on the same path, smoking weed behind the garage, it all changed when I got a new name, a new identity at 12 years old.
Wow. Wow. That's a powerful story right there. It's we have someone see Tommy James. He says, "Why did you see a vision of what life can be at a young age, and so many never get the joke?" Do you understand that?
Yeah, I think there was a part of me when I got a glimpse, when I got a glimpse of what normal was like. It was a combination of two things. I got a glimpse of what normal was like, normal people, so to speak, when I went to church that one time at 12 years old. You know what stood out to me, Joel, and this is amazing. I think back on this. Adults who didn't have bloodshot eyes. I just come accustomed to people who had bloodshot eyes because they had been drinking, because they had been experiencing certain things. But I just remember seeing that. I was impressed by that. I was impressed by people who were smiling and loving. There was so much anger and hurt and frustration and brokenness. And he was kicked out of school and he was caught doing drugs and she was, so I had so much of that. And not to say those things didn't happen with this new population of people, but I realized there was potential and possibility. The other thing that I think significantly impacted me, and one of the reasons why I became a children's author, the library at Maple Valley Library off of Cobby Road in Akron, Ohio, had the coldest water in their water fountain that I ever tasted. When I was out riding my bike as a little kid, everybody wanted to go to Maple Valley Library to drink some water out the water fountain. And I remember going there drinking water one time as a kid, and I started pulling books off the shelf. Loved it. It took me all over the world, reading books and reading stories, and it was it just impacted me. And so I had a decision to make. And as I say now, when I speak to young people around America, any dead fish can go with the flow. I can take a dead fish, put it in the river, and it'll take off. You go, boy, boogie, go, go, go. And it's dead. It takes a live fish to go upstream. And I could do what anybody else was doing in my little clique, my little community. I could go with the flow, but I wanted to go against the flow because I wanted a different life for myself. I just wanted a different life. And I remember I lost some friends because of that. I remember in high school, a friend of mine didn't want to hang out with me because he knew I wasn't smoking weed and drinking alcohol. And he made up a story to drop me off at home because he said he was going home. And he went home, and I went around the corner to the school, the local high school, to see them play football. And he was there. And I'm thinking, I thought you said you were going, but I didn't even confront him. I saw him in the car with some other friends who were drinking with him. I wasn't the one. I was willing to make those sacrifices because I wanted a life. I wanted a life.
Just about every. Thank you, Tommy, for the comment and question. I have yet to meet a professional football player who has had a great relationship with their father. I know that a lot of football coaches tap into the father hunger, and they become father figures many times to professional athletes, even in college. Can you kind of share a little bit about your story with your dad, as much as you're comfortable sharing?
Certainly. I'm just thinking I didn't mention much about my father other than the separation and divorce. But my relationship with my father was such a quintessential piece of my story, even at 62, that I encountered with all the men I work with in the NFL, I work with the young ladies I work with in high school and colleges, young men, young people, daddy pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I love my dad. I mean, my dad was my dad, and my mom and dad had a plan. He would go to college, she would stay home, and then she would go to college, and he would be working. And he went off to college and got a degree, and she had a baby, and then he got an advanced degree. She had another baby and another baby. Then he got his master's in physics, and she had the fourth child, and they grew apart.
Hmm.
And the relationship broke. And as life would have it, this was early 1970s. Interracial relationships were not very popular. And my dad, in order to avoid a lot of the contention, because my mom was so well loved, and her family, she was very well known because of her brothers who were football stars, etc. That my dad's way of dealing with all of that was just to ostracize himself. And so my older siblings experienced more of the pain of the fighting and the arguing. I experienced some of that, but I was 7 years old. That was my dad. And something happened right before the final straw that marked me for life.
Hmm.
And it was one of those days when mom and dad were going at it. And my mom said, "That's it. You're not going to lay another hand on me." And I didn't. I'm 7 years old. I'm like, "What is she doing?" And my brothers were upstairs. It was just another fight. So they were upstairs. They weren't paying attention. And I followed my mom into the kitchen, and my mom went into the kitchen closet, and she had a gun hidden in one of her coats. And she got the gun, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Hmm.
My mom came back into the living room. I ran to my dad because my worst fears were being realized in front of my eyes. And my mom, I remember like it was yesterday, her hair was all over her head. Her nose was bleeding and her mouth and swollen. And she had that gun, and she put her head down and she aimed that gun. And she said, "You're not going to lay another hand on me."
Hmm.
I couldn't even scream. I couldn't even speak. And I looked up at my dad, and I'll never forget the helpless feeling I had as he took his big paws and put them around my little tiny 7-year-old biceps. And he snatched me up in front of him as a shield and said, "You won't shoot your baby."
Hmm.
And I remember to this day, my wheels were going, and I couldn't move, and I couldn't get out of his grip. And I had my mouth wide open to scream, but no sound was coming out. And she fired into the ground, into the floor. And my father dropped me and said, "I knew there were blanks in that gun."
Hmm.
And later I asked my dad as a teenager, I had a nightmare, and I spent the night at his house. And I was 16 years old. I had a nightmare about that. And I said, "Dad, how did that happen? Why did you pick me up in front of you?" And he said, "I knew there were blanks in the gun. Nothing was going to happen to you." But I'm thinking to myself at 7 years old,
Yeah.
I didn't know there were blanks in the gun. So even in that chasm, that's still my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I experienced the rejection in different ways throughout my life, but you learn how to keep going. And when I said I had a conversion experience at 12 years old, incidentally, my sister and the guy that she was dating broke up, and she was my ride to church. Church on the east side of Akron, Arlington Church of God, Robert Street at the time. I called the church at 12 years old. This is Steve Fitzhugh. I live at 1082 Rosslyn Avenue. Do you have a van that can come pick me up for his church? Yes, we do. Do you want to come to Sunday school and church? Yes, I like to. So when I was 12 years old, The van came to pick me up to church Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, Sunday school and church. I was such a quiet kid. Right after church, I would go out and sit in the church van and wait for other van riders to come to go home. I didn't know anybody. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't talk to the other kids who were in Sunday school. Sunday after Sunday from the time I was 12, Sunday after Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, the time I'm 13, I'm 14 by myself, I'm 15 by myself, 16 by myself, because I wanted a life. And so part of that experience, God impressed upon me. I really believe that I cried out about my daddy pain, and it was as if God was saying, at every stage of your life, there's going to be a surrogate that I'm going to present in your life that's going to teach you and mold you and shape you and mentor you. And that has happened to this day. And my pastor, Dr. Ron Fowler at that church, was like a father figure to me. And when I went to the state track finals, and I was on the winner stand, and that's
You ran hurdles, right?
I ran hurdles, and I was on the winner stand, and you know, it was no big deal that my dad wasn't there and my family wasn't there. It was at Ohio State Horseshoe Stadium, and I heard somebody say, Steve. I'm thinking, it's 20,000 people at Ohio State University, Ohio State track finals. Who is here calling my name? And it was my pastor on the other side of the track with his camera. Smile, man, smile. He packed his whole family up, drove 2 hours to be daddy for me.
My goodness.
And that's happened throughout my life. So the question I had to deal with was, and I just heard someone say this recently, you know, it's not so much as how you're enlightened, but what do you do with the enlightenment? So I was enlightened about the absence of an experience, more so of my father's rejection. But how do I pull down what I need resource-wise to be the man myself that I'm supposed to be, and to be the father that I'm supposed to be? And all throughout my life, God has brought people there. The big question I had to ask myself, when my father took ill at 93 last September, and I went to Phoenix, and he was taken to the hospital. And I'm in the hospital and looking for a place because he needed 24-hour care. And the doctor said the second week, you know, we're not going to be able to move him. His next stop is going to be hospice. So now I'm with him for this next week. And the doc says, although my dad was coherent, we were talking, and doc says privately, he'll probably be nonverbal by next week. And so at the end of that week, I was sitting by my dad's bed in the hospital there in Phoenix, and I'm saying, if my dad is nonverbal, thinking to myself, he will have died, and I will have never heard him say, "Son, I'm proud of you." So I'm sitting there, he was asleep. I said, before I go tonight, maybe I just will wake him up and say, you know what, Dad, I never heard you say, "Son, I'm proud of you." And as I thought about that, I thought, what would happen if, like he's always done, reject me one more time? And in the back of my mind, I have lived with the fact that with his dying breath, he refused to say, "I'm proud of you." And I just didn't wake him up. And sure enough, the next week in hospice, 4 days later, he was gone. But my question is, why is it that a 61-year-old man at that time, who's accomplished and done and seen and experienced and has his own family, has been married for 35 years, has 2 grown daughters and a granddaughter, why is that guy still craving his father's approval? That is deep.
That's deep.
So as we deal with some of these guys in the NFL who I work with, who are transitioning out into the real world. In fact, Joel, we do some work as transition coaches with the rookies. Most of our work is with the guys transitioning out.
Okay.
You know, one of the things that they have to get a handle on, and I love how my friend Johnny Parker says this: every man has to learn how to evict the boy in him.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to evict the boy in you if you don't know what a man is.
Hmm.
And that's the challenge. I have another friend, Dave Wilson, who does chapel services for NFL, and he said he walked into the Cowboy locker room one time, and on short notice he had to change his talk, and the first thing came to mind was, for 30 years, he said, I've been in NFL locker rooms all around the country, and I see two groups of people. I see men and I see boys. Men win championships. And so I think as men, one of our lifelong struggles is how, and his key piece about the difference between the two is men take responsibility and they are accountable, and boys are takers, men are givers. What value do you add to that relationship? What value do you add to that woman? What value do you add to that organization as a man? Where a boy is, give me this, give me this, give me this, give me this. So anyway, we can do a whole show on that.
We have, this is profound. We have to take a break for our sponsor, but when we come back, I'd like to, I know we have some questions here. Maybe we can address some of those questions. I'd like to talk about what happens between talent and character, in terms of keeping someone, talent taking someone to high levels, and character keeping them there. And what are some of the things that you share with the players transitioning to regular life? So Mel, we're going to play right now the something from our sponsor, Rosetta Universe.
I lost my eye in an explosion, but that never stopped me from ballooning and inventing the modern pencil. I helped solve many problems during my time in Egypt. Helped the Rosetta Stone Traveling Exhibit Project transform an ancient artifact, the Rosetta Stone, into a modern metaphor for problem solving. You will love it.
Folks, if you can go to the link tree above, the QR code take you to link tree. The number one on the link tree is the Rosetta Universe. And there's a lot of information about this particular project where we're transforming this ancient artifact, the Rosetta Stone, into a modern metaphor for problem solving. And it's there's a lot of fascinating elements, and I'd love for you to take a look at it. And then if you could just get in touch with me personally, any advice, any wisdom, any contacts, any ideas, wide open for anything you have to share. It's a global project. So we come back to you, Steve. Let's see. Tina says, if your dad knew that they were blanks, why did he pick you up as a shield?
Yeah, he said he knew they were blanks. He didn't know they were blanks.
Okay.
It was his response to being held accountable for doing something that he shouldn't have done.
Yes.
And in fact, he progressed from there. I had a phase I had to go through. My mother-in-law has been an incredible asset in my spiritual development. And she challenged me one day. She said, as she does, she shakes her head. She said, "Son, you're going to have to forgive your father."
I can see her saying that. I can hear her.
She said Jesus had to forgive his.
She's a sweetheart.
But what happened was I did that one day. One day I wrote down, I was just about to go on vacation with my family. I wrote down everything I could think of every major thing that brought me pain in my life. And I wrote in a letter and I said, "Dad, I forgive you of all of this. I just want a relationship with my dad." And his response was, "That whole gun thing, that never happened, son." You're going to be confused with somebody else. That never happened. I never did that. Then he put his wife on the phone, and she said, and she affirmed what he said. Oh yeah, that never happened either. You know. So anyway, that was just his coping mechanism, and we do many different things in an attempt to cope with our shortcomings. So we say things we don't really intend.
Wow. It's called gaslighting. Wow. Well, see, Tommy James, not Tommy James and the Shondells, but we got Tommy here. He says, wow, Steve, what an insight. People's eyes. But my question is, what gave you and not others the power to see these things change agents, while others may have also seen the clear eyes but not connect the dots? You're an exception more than the rule. Your journey seems very idiosyncratic, while difficult for most to follow. How do they break the chain? Great question.
Yeah, and I have a simple one of my mantras that I live by. Love that continues to take the initiative is irresistible. I made a commitment and decision one day to continue to take the initiative in my father's life. I did not come up with that mantra. Someone who I had let down, and I questioned them, how can they still treat me as if I had never let them down? And that's what my good friend said to me. He said, Steve, I just believe love that continues to take the initiative is irresistible. So I'm just gonna keep loving you, brother. And it was one thing I've never done before or since. And I was a no-show for a high school assembly. And this guy had worked so hard to make this assembly happen.
What, to speak at the assembly?
I was just speaking.
Yeah. Okay.
And it just was, it was we got out of sync with what we normally do during assembly week. And so although I spoke all week in Maryland, I usually did one area 1 week. But there was one school in Richmond. I'd done all the schools in Richmond, Virginia. And this one school said, no, thank you. And then after I left, all the principals told that principal he was an idiot. So he said, all right, I'll have Steve Fitzhugh. And that was my Maryland week. So I finished my Maryland week, and my office called me. It was my first day. I was doing assemblies all week. My office called me, Steve, what are you doing? I just got a cup of coffee from about to go to the gym. Well, there's a school in Richmond that think you're going to walk in the door in about 5 minutes. But I say that to say, you never know when the revelation is going to come about how people see circumstances and situations differently. And so I had to, it's been an organic process. I'm learning along the way. I'm still learning. I had to learn how to continue to take the initiative when my love to take this initiative stopped. And I needed God's love to take the initiative the rest of the way, so to speak. I was really trusting by doing what I would do because I love, even when I didn't feel like loving all the way. I did it anyway because I believe that's the way God loved me. And so that made a difference. Now, let me land the plane with the whole father situation and how the end of it. And it's I'm going to put it in a nutshell. Having been stricken with stage 5 kidney failure 3 years ago, 5 years ago. Anybody that I know around the world could have given me a kidney. The guy who donated a kidney to me was a guy I hadn't seen in over 42 years. He was a college teammate. He heard I needed a kidney. He said, Steve, I'm your guy. His name is Derek Hines. Now, my dad lives in Phoenix, Arizona, and his wife became sick with pancreatic cancer, and the local pastor who was coming by and ministering to my dad's wife, and he continued to do so after she passed. And my dad, being a scientist, a physicist, I mean, he's only come to hear me preach one time. So he's not really into all of that religion stuff. So consequently, he would open the door when that pastor came by once a month and kind of courtesy open. Yeah, okay, thank you, bye. Then one day, when I got my kidney, he tells that pastor there in Phoenix, hey, yeah, my son finally got a kidney. Yeah, Ray, who was it? Yeah, it was a friend of his. In fact, he lives here in Phoenix. His name is Derek Hines. Pastor Jay goes, Ray, Derek Hines? Yeah, I know Derek Hines. So now my dad, who thinks Derek Hines is the best thing in the world because he saved his son's life by giving the kidney, what do you know about Derek Hines? And so they're talking about Derek Hines. And so the pastor goes home and says to his wife, Marcia, Pastor Jay says to Marcia, I think Ray Fitzhugh is, he's ready to hear the gospel. And so she said, next week, let's do that. So that's what they do. The next week, they set up a meeting with my dad. She makes some soup. She bakes some cookies. They get in their car. First time ever, the car won't start. And so he says, I know what we're going to do. We're not going to let the enemy stop us. What are we going to do? He said, load up the golf cart. So they load up the golf cart with all the soup, the cookies. They drove the golf cart to my father's house, sat down, and had dinner, had dessert, and Pastor Jay says, Ray, if you were to die tonight, are you certain you would go to heaven? And my dad said, I'm not certain, but I'd like to be certain. Prayed a prayer with him, and he said, would you like to pray the prayer tonight? There's a way you can be certain. And my dad said, for the first time first time in his life, he's now 92. He says, I'd like to pray that prayer. So I say that to say of just a little thing of me continuing to take the initiative. I came to a point where I had a relationship where I was still in communication with my dad, and it's made the difference of a eternity with him, not just a lifetime. So anyway, I don't look at myself as the gentleman said, that I'm an exception to the rule. I don't look at myself as an exception to the rule, because I have too many examples of too many people who have had that encounter and they were enlightened, or they've had a certain situation come up. I've had too many young people I've poured into, I've seen, have experiences that has flipped the script in their lives, and it's just remarkable. And so, yes, there's some things that are peculiar about my experience, but I have testimony after testimony after testimony of people who have made small incremental changes, and it's revolutionized their lives.
Ladies and gentlemen, everyone watching this or listening, Steve is one of the finest speakers, not just to youth, but to any audience that I've seen. I put him in the top 5 category. His physicality, just the humor, the engagement, just the tone, everything is just remarkable in terms of reaching, especially kids, and just watching them watch Steve and the impact it's had on my life. It's just been remarkable. Well, we have something here. And by the way, if anyone wants to book Steve, we will have that information available. Steve, what's your website?
SteveFitzhugh.com.
And you spell Fitzhugh?
Fitzhugh.
SteveFitzhugh.com.
Or powermoves.org, same place.
And get in touch with him, because you will not regret it. He'll find out exactly what the bullseye is that you want him to shoot for, and he'll hit the bullseye for you. We have Carl. Forgiving is the easy part. Forgetting is the problem. Any thoughts on that for Carl and for the rest of our viewers?
Well, I would say that I agree, because I've had experiences where I've forgiven, But the forgetting part is you have to come to a point that you're forgiven in your heart to the extent that you are 100% sure that letting go is the best, healthiest way in which you can process the offense. And so that's how I just kind of function in my life. I don't want the offense to continue to take up space in my head and in my heart, because if that's the case, there are all kind of triggers out there that can trigger that offense, and I could lose my joy, and it's just not worth it. I've been hurt deeply, not just in my father and people close to me. I've been hurt deeply in my professional walk. I had someone very dear to me when I was 10 years old, a cousin of mine. I looked up to him, and if I mention his name, you might know him because he's an entertainer, but he was doing a concert when I was about 10, 11 years old, and I was there, and that was my cousin, and I was there, and he came off stage, and I was so proud of the fact that I was back playing football, and I said, I'm playing football, and I looked up to this guy, and with his hand, I had a cutoff shirt on. It was in the summertime. And with his hand, without looking, he smacked me in my stomach and knocked the wind out of me. He said, boy, you're too soft to play football. And what would happen if I would have forgiven him, but I didn't forget? And instead of going back to play football, I thought to myself, I'm just too soft. I didn't want to have my life hindered because of his label or assessment of me. I had one of my very first youth ministry opportunities. I had my supervisor call me in. I went to her office. She was very difficult. She was very hard on me. And I was having some success as the youth minister at this particular church. And I went to her and I said, you were hard on me in that last meeting. What's going on? And I realized that I was not her first choice to be the paid youth minister of that church, but the pastor overrode her and selected me. And so she said very succinctly, she looked me in my eyes. She said, let's put it like this, Steve Fitzhugh. Whatever it takes to be a youth pastor, whatever that one thing is. I mean, you can speak to kids and all that kind of stuff, but whatever it is takes to be a youth pastor, you don't have it.
My goodness. Whoa.
And I said, well, what does that mean about my employment here at this facility? And she said, well, I didn't hire you, so I can't fire you. Now I've been a youth specialist this is my 41st school year of speaking in universities and colleges around the country. And I have a youth center with a $1.3 million budget where our entire program staff there in Southeast DC are all products of our project. They were ninth graders. Now they're married and grown-ups and running the facility. And it's all, I won't say completely, but it's my baby. It's ideas. I got a great team there doing great stuff. And so it's one thing to be offended, but what do I do with that offense?
Yes.
I'm not going to carry that offense. I'm not going to let it put boundaries on what I can accomplish, what I can do. And if God gives me an idea, and I say this all the time, God only gives us ideas greater than who we are, so that by the stretching of our faith, it gives him the joy of pulling the impossible within our reach. And so I'm going to keep stretching. The risk is not in saying yes to those things, those ideas. The risk is in our hesitation, because it's in our hesitation that we might forfeit our destiny and become a victim of our own caution.
A victim of our own caution.
I don't want to be a victim of our own caution. So, it takes time. It takes time. Things don't happen overnight. Some offense will cause scars the quickest way to heal is to let it go, and then it takes time.
It's like forgiveness is a decision, and it takes time for the emotions to catch up. And sometimes it takes a long time for them to catch up, if they ever do.
And that's what impresses me, and not to sound preachy, but that's what impresses me, that I really believe. I've never been to a point in my life where I had to confess a sin, and I said, "Dear God, I'm sorry," and God's never said, "I'm not ready to forgive you yet."
Huh.
Not yet. Maybe tomorrow. It's immediate. It's instant. Because I don't think that I'm supposed to carry that offense into tomorrow. I don't want to go to sleep carrying that offense. And so I just let it go. My wife and I have something that we do, that if she's offended me or says something to offend me, I will go to her and ask her forgiveness for any ill feelings I've had because of how she offended me. Now she has to acknowledge the offense and say, "I'm sorry, I offended you." And we always say, you can't say, "I'm sorry that it offended you." No.
If
"I'm
that.
sorry I offended you." And then I can accept her apology. And same way with her. She'll come to me, "I'm sorry for any ill feelings I've had for what you said or did." And I didn't even know I said or did. So what did I say? "Oh, I'm sorry." So we can move on and not carry offense.
Wow. Well, you're working with a lot of, the house in Southeast DC. You helped to bring that together with another professional athlete to birth that. What was that, 23, 24 years ago now? And you bought 3 crack houses and turned it into a place called The House, DC?
Right. The next year would be we're celebrating our 27th year.
27th. Oh my goodness.
27 years. We brokered the purchase of 3 former crack houses and turned them into an after-school teen drop-in center. We kind of categorize it, identify it differently. We identify it as an urban youth mission. It's an urban mission. And so state-of-the-art recording studio, computer lab, fitness center. We take trips and do all sorts of things. We have students studying abroad. We have students who, when COVID happened, we had a student who was working for a law firm in New York, and they sent her home to work from home, but she didn't have the resources to work from home. So we set up an office in our youth center, and the New York office called her office their DC office.
Wow.
And so, we've had a doctor of pharmacology candidate at Howard University. We've had school teachers and, Marine sergeants and all sorts of things. So it's real exciting just seeing life change with these students. I've actually performed 5 weddings from students at the house. It's been pretty remarkable.
And that's an area where you have to have steel on the top of the roof, because people will use an axe to chop through the roof to seal it to get into to steal stuff, right? It's pretty crazy.
It's an underserved community, and people in desperate situations do desperate things. I was just disheartened my last trip there. We've done everything to batten down, lock up, chain, fence up our air conditioning units. They've taken them from the roof, taken them from the floor to the ground.
Wow.
It's challenging, but it's worth the challenge. It's worth the challenge. Yeah. We have some great partners with the work that we do there. McLean Bible Church, and Lon Salmon was one of our original colleagues that, and Ricky Bolden played for the Cleveland Browns, and myself. We just wanted to love on Anacostia. And so many people build nice, shiny, fun nonprofits. We want to go to a place where there's no prerequisite to participate. If you get your parents to sign, you can come to the house. One of our students became a proficient recording engineer, and we took him over to Africa to install a recording studio in an Africa Youth Center. And he's done stuff for documentaries, soundtracks, and it's been pretty remarkable.
Yeah, because the hours, from 3 to 6 are the most important hours to catch kids, because that's time when they really can get into trouble between end of school and getting home.
In fact, when people ask us for quantification of what we do and why we do it, we can show them numbers. And University of Baylor did a study, went back 10 years on the house, and did a pretty powerful study on our effectiveness. And we got some numbers, but we can't quantify the value of our facility and quantify the value in terms of a student being in our facility from 3:15 to 7:30 at night every night. There's so much that they miss. And even during those times, we've had students who have been robbed on their way to the center. We had students who've been shot. We had to shut down for a couple of days because we were on the phones raising money. And there was a student who was walking home, and she was actually ended up being the valedictorian of Anacostia High School that year. But she was shot and just in a drive-by. And so we've had to bury a number of students, and it's been tragic. But we're trying to make a difference in the lives of as many as we can through the mission of the house. And
we have about 3 minutes left. If someone has besmirched their good name, done it bad, if you will, how can they get their good name back?
Well, I think it begins with how we begin to think about ourselves. When you begin to understand, and I talk a lot to youth about how before you were born a winner or a loser, you weren't born a winner or a loser. You're born a swimmer. Because there's about 200 million potentials.
Yeah.
You beat them all, Doc. Not only did you beat them all, the reality is that the birth canal, the immune system of the woman's birth canal is designed to take you out. Because if there's anything other than that woman's DNA that enters her body is designed to shut it down. And so in that spermicide, there's enzymes that will lower her immune system. There are enzymes that will cloak around the sperm cell to allow it to make that long swim. And there's about 200, between 100 and 300 million, about 200 million on average are swimming. And once they fertilize that egg, that zygote will form. And the first thing that zygote would do is send a message out and tell the immune system, take everybody else out. Take them out. So 199,999,999 get executed and fleshed out. Why? Because God said, you. And if you injured your name, rebuild it. Do the right thing. Even the right thing is hard to do. You need some things to put around you. Put people around you. I tell folks all the time, whoever that person is you spend most of your time with, that person's real name is Otis. Why? Otis is #1 people mover in the United States. Elevators, escalators. That person's going to take you up or take you down.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with people who can help you become the person you want to be. Have the thoughts that are going to help you become the person that you need to be, because your mind is powerful. And I believe you've already beat some incredible odds because you're here. You are here.
Oh, man, Steve.
Respect your name.
You have just experienced another episode of the Mischief Maker broadcast. Hit the subscribe button. Connect at chiefmischiefmaker.com. Thanks for coming along for the ride. And hopefully, you are now a bit closer to becoming a mischief maker in your part of the world.